A powerful spiritual force pulsates all around us, offering energy and meaning to our daily lives. If we can meet the challenge of this force, our lives will expand in joy, peace, and fulfillment. The Redondo Beach Center for Spiritual Living and the Ministry of Dr. Moira Fox presents Living Ideas. The power of new thought based on the dynamic principles of science of mind as taught by Dr. Moira Fox. These programs are presented in order that we encompass the mastery of well-directed faith based on the inner conviction that we are surrounded by an intelligent law which does unto each of us as we believe.
So it is a delight to be here with each and every one. And as I say, we're honored by those who have come to join us for the first time and spend some little time with us. And as I like to say too, I think you'll go away feeling like we all do, the better for it. And so it's good to be in fellowship in the spiritual family and the spiritual Sangha, and together know that we are indeed one. And so today we're looking at this thing called the path. The path. It's always before us. There are always paths. Everywhere you go, there are paths. In fact, I love to take pictures of paths. Whenever I see paths, wherever I see a path, I take a picture. Something about that thing in the path that draws us. So we want to know the path, the way, the Tao of it all. And the thing is, as we do that, and we do it very diligently from time to time, and then we forget about it, and then we come back to it, there is no path. There is no way, particular way. And we have to understand that everything is now, everything is here, and everything is present now. And that's why we can respond to the invitation, be here now. Because it's only here and now that you and I can experience the wonder and the awe of it all. And it is all awesome in one way or another. And we're deciding that that awesomeness is wonderful, no matter what. But if there is a path, I would say it is consciousness. Consciousness is the path. Consciousness is the way. Consciousness is the Tao. And it's out of consciousness then that we are inspired to choose this way or this path or that path in order to self-reveal, self-realize, in order to find our way into God realization, self-actualization, or what I like to call find our way back home to the self of ourselves, the truth of our being, and so on. And so, for that reason, you and I need to be very clear about what is and what isn't, so that we can support our lives with what is and not with what isn't. There's a conundrum. So, the path. In the past, for eons, we thought that religion was the way, religion was the path. It's got to be religion, it's got to be the way, it's got to be the path. Many of us embrace that. But today we've come into the realization, and it's a lovely good thing, that although we honor and revere the past and all of its customs and traditions, we are no longer held hostage by it or by them. We've come into the realization that within this religious frame there are many ways, many paths, and all of them are leading to the same experience, back home to the self of ourselves, if we follow their tenets. And in following them, I mean live from them, assimilate them and apply them into the way we think and live and move and have our being. I was asked in the temple once upon a time, why was it that the world is in such a terrible place when so many of us have religion? I said, that's very simple. We're just not living the principles of the faith that we embrace. That's why. That's all. You see, you can have a religion and not have a relationship with your source. You can have a religion without a relationship with your source. Many people do. Many people do. And that religion, they believe in certain principles, certain creeds, certain doctrines, certain dogmas, and so on. But you can believe all of that and yet not have a relationship with your true source. And so we've come into the awareness now that we can be comfortable in a temple, in a mosque, in a synagogue, in an ashram, in a sacred place, and feel at home there, although the prayer may look different, the architecture may look different, the ceremonies are different. Nevertheless, we can feel at home there and be okay with it. Because we're there to show up, to embrace the one spirit of life itself, the one presence, the one power, the one infinite being, the one source, you see. And so we can do that, and I'm sure you can do as I can do. I can go to all of these places and be perfectly at home there and find the same energy, the same presence, and the same source that I do here or anywhere else. And we've also come to realize that the prayer and the worship that we once knew to be part of a certain regiment or a certain worshipping group has now become much more global. It's not as local as it used to be. We have come into the realization that we don't have to be in any defined specific place in order to pray and worship. See, prayer and worship doesn't belong in a temple, in a church, or in any of these designated places any more than prayer and worship belongs wherever I am at any moment, in any given place, at any time. Prayer and worship is the atmosphere I live in and move in and have my being in and breathe in. We've come to realize that the God of the past, who was the God of elsewhere, is now a God of everywhere. Everywhere present, I can find that God. We've come to realize that prayer anymore is not the recitation of formulae, it's not the recitation of prayers learned by rote, and certainly we've come to realize that prayer is not a penance we impose upon ourselves. We've come to realize that now. We understand that prayer is much more all-pervasive than that. And so we find ourselves in all kinds of types of way of being in prayer. So we're engaged in breathing prayer, sweating prayer, sweat lodges, spiritual quests. We're engaged in laughing prayer. There's a laughing guru in India that goes all over the place just laughing, and it's his prayer. And it gets everybody else laughing too, just the idea of it. And so we find ourselves in dancing prayer, in signing prayer, in singing prayer, chanting prayer, humming prayer, in silent prayer, in meditative prayer, in activity prayer, inactivity prayer. We find ourselves just so darn well prayer-filled at all times. Because now we've come to know that prayer is an atmosphere, it's an energy, it's a way of being. That's all it is. And that it's no longer that thing that I put time aside for in the day to now go and pray. We're not going to pray anymore. We're just in a constant state of prayer. And then we'll get the inkling, I think I'll walk and pray. I think I'll just sit and pray. I think I'll dance and pray. And so on. And it's throughout the day and throughout the night. The sleeping prayer. In our sleep. And don't you wake up in your sleep praying sometimes? Meaning mindful of something greater than you are and greater than your small situation in the body. And this is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So when I find myself in the need to meditate, all I know is I need to extrapolate myself from the busyness of the embodiment now and all the distractions and all the rest of it, and I need to center myself now in something more than this. I need to embrace something bigger than this and something more than this. And that's what it is. There is the prayer of companionship. There is the prayer of engagement at all levels with people in all ways and in all situations. Whether I'm in the supermarket, whether I'm in the car, whether I'm under my own roof at home, whatever. The invitation is always there to pray. What does that mean? Get present. Be in that moment and pay attention to whatever it is that's around and about you, and make sure that what you're coming from is that authentic self as you are so being. And I didn't say so doing. So the path or the way is presence. Awareness of that amazing consciousness that is presence. That's the path, and the way of it, if there is a path and if there is a way, is the way of divine love. That's the only way there is. There's no other way and there's no other path. Love is it. The great Mahatma Gandhi said, God has no religion. And I like to say, love has no religion. I know that firsthand. I have so many beautiful, dear, dear, dear friends whom I love and who love me. And they belong to many, many different religions. Many different religions. Some I know very much about, and some I don't know that much about. I know enough, but I don't know that much, but I do know them. And I look at them and I say, my goodness, if that is whatever, it must be wonderful, because look at her, look at him. They're such beautiful, beautiful demonstrations of what their faith brings to them. And that's how I judge a religion. If I judge it all, and I get more and more away from judgment, I think, well, that must be Hinduism. Look at her, isn't she amazing? That must be Buddhism. He's incredible. So that's what Islam is. How neat is that? I don't need a creed or a doctrine. I don't need to hear that recited from somebody to know what their faith is. I just have to look at the way they're living their lives and I know what their faith is. It's the way of love. It's the way of love. And when the Dalai Lama was asked what was his religion, his response was, my religion is kindness. See? And we can own that. We can identify with that. We can say yes to that. Because that's an energy. And it's a powerful, inspiring, healing, uplifting, welcoming energy. Kindness, which is an aspect of love. Compassion, which is an aspect of love. So if I want to know what the path and the way is, there it is, in the Trinity of love, kindness, and compassion. And so we have to ask ourselves then the question this week. If I think I have a faith, if I think I have a religion, do I have a relationship that goes along with it, that fits it? Am I in relationship rather than am I in a religion? Religious science is not a religion anyway. It's a philosophy, it's a way of being. It's like Buddhism. It's a philosophy, it's a way of being. It's not a religion. God knows the world doesn't need any more religions. And indeed could do with a few, maybe less. And I'm looking forward to, John Lennon's prophecy, the day when there will be no religion, but there'll just be spirituality, and we'll all be embracing it and all living from the awareness of one power, one spirit, one presence. So, for you and for me now, the understanding and the awareness is that if life is right where I am, and it is, if it's in the present moment now, I have to embrace it for what it is and understand that there's a beautiful, awesome, magnificent to the ordinariness of life, and stop running around looking for the extraordinary and wanting God to be a this and a that and the other. Thich Nhat Hanh, whom I dearly love, talks about the Buddha and the relationship with the Buddha. And he says, I would not give up one moment of experiencing the essence of the Buddha in order to be in the presence of its form. I'll say that again. I would not give up one moment of being in the essence of the Buddha than being in the presence of its form. And yet that's what we're all looking for. Show your face to me, God. Show yourself to me, God. God, I want to see you. God, I want to touch you. God, I want to feel you. God, I want to be able to know that you're real. And for that, most of us think we want an apparition or a vision or something like that. And we'd love to be able to sit down with the Buddha and have a chat, sit down with Jesus, have a chat, sit down with Muhammad and have a chat, sit down with Krishna and have a chat, sit down with White Eagle and have a chat, except White Eagle is not a person, White Eagle is an energy. But we'd love that. Sit down, have a cup of coffee, have a cup of tea, or a beer maybe, and have a chat. Drop of wine maybe with Jesus, because they drank wine. And wouldn't that be lovely, and wouldn't that be great? And I remember as a very small child being very envious of the fact that the apostles got to hang out with Jesus so much, and how could that be fair? And that happened 2,000 years ago. What about all the people before those 2,000 years and after those 2,000 years? I mean, really, what was God thinking? You know, I wanted to see Jesus too. Not fair. And yet, the book says, if you meet the Buddha on the path, kill him. Yeah. But we're not talking about a real person. We're talking about a distraction. Let it die. Let the distraction die. You don't need the distraction. That is a distraction. Because what happens is we get attached to a form. You know we get attached to a form. We get attached to our friends, to our spouses, to our children, to our parents, to the dog, to the cat, to the squirrel, you know, to the butterfly, whatever, to the piano, to the whatever. We're like that in our human beingness. We get attached, and they become distractions. They keep us in a very narrow focus so that we're not able to see the circular focus. And so we don't want to be distracted by form, because we're not going to find the Buddha, the Christ, the Jesus, the whatever in form. We're not. We're going to find that presence in essence, in experiencing a sense, a sensation, a feeling. And that sense and sensation is all embracing. It's around you, it's about you, and it interpenetrates you. It's everything you are, and it goes out and out and out and out and out, and you can feel it, and it's huge. It's huge, but there's no describing it. Now, I don't care who it is, Jesus himself stood in front of you. There's only so much of Jesus you can experience in form. And it'll be a fleeting experience, because then he'll have to get up and go away and go about his Father's business and leave you with the memory of it all. Even the disciples who walked with Jesus on the road to Emmaus, who didn't know from Adam who he was at the time, they were just coming out of Jerusalem, and they were talking to each other, and they said, have we not seen marvelous things in Jerusalem today? And the scripture note says, their hearts burned within them. Their hearts were on fire, having walked with the person of Jesus. But it was a transformed Jesus. It was a refined Jesus. And then they only recognized him in the breaking of the bread, and then he disappeared. He sat down and broke bread with them, and then he disappeared. See, the presence, when you embrace it in relationship, never disappears. Because it's formless. It's always with you. Never disappears. Form always disappears. Form always disappears, yours and everybody else's. So isn't it time now that we really embraced what's available to us, given to us, always has been, always will be with us forever and ever, and enjoy the deep sweetness of that relationship? But the key is I have to court the presence back. It's not that the presence doesn't court you and court me, it does, but I have to court it back. See, the invitation is, respond, but it will not be hoisted upon us, forced upon us. We must willingly respond and court back and open ourselves up to being in a conscious relationship with the greatness of being, which is right where we are. The problem with that one is we look at ourselves and we see ourselves as form. We do. We look at ourselves and we see ourselves as form. Anytime we catch a glimpse of anyone out there, we see them as a form. Lovely person. And we have all kinds of judgments about the forms we're looking at. Some nice, not so nice. Well, it's very relative. We look at ourselves in a mirror and we've mixed feelings about all of that too. Some days we look okay and other days, See, we've all kinds of distractions and judgments around the form because we're identifying with a form, but yet we're not a form. That's like saying, I am my suit of clothes. And because my suit of clothes is all rumpled today and crumpled today, I'm a rumpled, crumpled person today. Well, that's silly. And yet that's what we do. That's what we do. So I have to look to that which is more than the form within myself in order to be able to have this kind of connection with my source, this relationship that is nurturing and nourishing and causes me to flourish and to thrive. And however I have to do that, I have to do that. A man came to Rumi one day, who was one of my favorite mystic poets, and he said to him, please God, that God would take me into God's world. At least there I would have peace. And Rumi says, what do you know about the whereabouts of the Creator? He says, right within you is this world and that world, and you must go about on your own, realizing your own desire because you are the microcosm. That means that the macrocosm, all of life, contains me. But the greater mystery is that the macrocosm, all of life, is within this microcosm. Go figure that one out. The huge is in the little, and the little is in the huge. So here's where I go to chapel. Here's where I go to church. Here's where I go to mosque. Here's where I go to the ashram. Here's where I go to the synagogue. Here's where I go to the sacred place. Here, first and foremostly. This is where I must go, to this temple, because as Thich Nhat Hanh says, Buddha doesn't sit on an altar unless that altar is within the heart of yourself. And then Buddha is not sitting, Buddha is dancing. That's what I say. There's no sitting in spirit. It's aliveness, it's vitality, it's energy, and it's an energy that's always in movement, and it's always moving upon something to create something more. Isn't that wonderful? That's exactly what you do too. As spirit is, so too are you. As the Creator is, so too are you. You do exactly everything in the same way that Spirit does, in the same way the Creator does. You are an energy of consciousness, and that consciousness is always moving, and it's always acting upon something and creating something new. You and I have to make sure that something new is a good something and not a negative something, because it'll work either way. So again, we're here to be reminded by the Spirit that wants to reveal itself through this gathering today that each and every one sitting in this seat is worthy. Each and every one sitting in a seat here and me standing here is holy. Each one is entitled and each one is godly. Now, you can do what you like with that information. You can take it to your own and let it be that which is so wonderful and healing and uplifting and advancing, or you can poo-poo it and say, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Or you can forget about it entirely as soon as you walk out the door and not avail of that power and that presence that is there for you. So the call this week is to turn within. The call this week is to see ourselves more than form. The call this week is to be in conscious relationship with the greatness and the moreness of our being. And the best way to do that is to simply be present, awake, and alert, regardless of what we're doing or not doing. And that's our challenge. And I am knowing that all of us are ready to meet it and are excited about meeting it. And I am knowing as a consequence of that, at the end of this week, we'll all be feeling much better because we have been thinking much better and being much better. So, there's nothing left for me to do except to say this room is filled with light. And you have brought it into the room, each and every one of you. This room is filled with your light, with your radiance, with your grace, and with your magnificence. And it is given to all of us to embrace it and to be together as one within it. And that's what I'm knowing. And that's what I'm knowing you are knowing. And so it is.
We invite you to experience Dr. Moira in person on Sundays. Our services are at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. and childcare is available. Please join us. If you enjoy these messages and would like to make a donation to our center, please visit our website at redondocrs.org. Thank you for your support of this ministry.